Welcome to HFY Beyond Terra, where humanity doesn't just survive, it becomes the galaxy's biggest surprise. Subscribe, and let's go beyond Terra.
The first time I saw her, she was trying not to breathe. She lay on the deck plating of Bay 9, wrists bound with fiber cords so thin it looked polite. A medic light blinked above her, green, then amber, then green again, like the ship itself couldn't decide whether she was a patient or a problem. Around us, everything smelled like sterilizer and burned insulation. The corridor had taken a glancing hit 2 days ago. The bulkhead patch still held a faint scorch pattern shaped like a blooming flower. She watched me through half-lidded eyes the way prey watches shadow. I stopped 2 paces short and held both hands where she could see them. My palms were empty. No tools, no blade, no shock baton. Her throat worked. She didn't speak. Her species didn't do well with sound when afraid. Their vocal folds locked and their tongues pressed hard to the roof of their mouths. A reflex like a turtle shelling in. The others had told me enough. Zyron, diplomatic courier from the Vale Coalition. Their emissary fleet had been ambushed on the edge of our territory. She'd escaped in a pod and drifted until a salvage tug found her and brought her to the nearest human vessel with a working medbay, our vessel, which to her might as well have been a predator's den, because everyone knew what humans were if you listened to the right channels. Humans were the species that fought wars the way storms fought forests. Humans were the species who smiled when they were angry. Humans were the species who didn't flinch at pain because they'd evolved with too much of it. Humans were, in the Vale Coalition's emergency briefings, an unknown variable with a statistically significant probability of disproportionate response. And in certain less official corners of the galaxy, humans were the monsters you warned hatchlings about so they'd stop climbing cliffs. Her escort, 2 Coalition security officers, had died in the pod. She'd been alone when we opened the hatch. Alone. Injured. In our hands, she stared at my throat, not my eyes, a submissive gaze. Her pupils were wide enough to swallow her irises. Then she whispered, so soft my translator struggled, please. It wasn't a plea for comfort. It was a plea for speed. I'd heard that tone before, on Earth. From a wounded dog pinned under a car, certain the hand reaching toward it meant harm. Zyron, I said gently, letting my translator render my words in her phoneme range. My name is Elias Mar. I'm the ship's systems engineer. I'm not medical, but I'm assigned to help keep you alive until we reach a station. Her eyelids fluttered. She didn't relax. If anything, her chest hitched harder. The medic light blinked amber again. I glanced at the readout. Dehydration, microfractures along her left forelimb, internal bruising, elevated stress hormones. Do you understand me? I asked. She swallowed. Yes. The translator caught the shape of the word, but not the meaning behind it. I can't stop understanding you. There was a stool beside the wall. I dragged it slowly into view and sat, not looming. Not standing over her like a judge. Her eyes tracked the stool the way a rabbit tracks a hawk's shadow. Okay, I said. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to cut your bindings. Then I'm going to offer you water. If you don't want it, I'll set it down and leave. If you do want it, you can take it yourself. She stared at me with something close to despair. You can also ask for a coalition observer, I added, but we're a little short on visitors. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, then painfully. If you cut them, I can run. That's true, I said. Do you want to run? A tremor rippled along her flank scales. I don't want to die. That was the entire universe, condensed into one sentence. I nodded, accepting it without argument. Then let's start with not dying. I reached into my pocket slowly and pulled out a small safety cutter. Not a blade, more like a tool used to slice cord without hurting skin. I held it out far from her body, giving her time to see its shape. She flinched anyway. Her eyes squeezed shut. She closed them like a final door. certain I'd kill her. I didn't move, not until her breathing steadied enough to stop sounding like panic in a small room. "I'm going to touch the cord," I said. "Not you." Her eyes stayed closed. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I leaned forward, slow, deliberate, and slid the cutter under the fiber cord at her right wrist. The cord parted with a soft snap. She jerked like she'd expected pain. Her eyes flew open, wild, and found nothing. No blood, no punishment, just her wrist free. I cut the left. Her hands rose immediately, defensive, protective, then hovered, uncertain. She stared at her own fingers as if they belonged to someone else. I set the cutter down on the deck between us and pushed it away, out of reach of both of us, like a peace offering you couldn't accuse of being a trap. Then I stood, walked to the dispenser, and filled a cup with water. I didn't bring it to her. I placed it on the deck near her shoulder, within reach, and stepped back. "You can take it," I said, "or not." She didn't move for a long heartbeat. Then, so cautious it was almost ceremonial, her hand crept toward the cup. She sniffed it. The translator couldn't capture the way her pupils adjusted, the way she scanned for hidden mechanisms. Finally, she drank, one sip, two, a longer pull. Her throat worked. Her eyes watered, not from the water, from the shock of it. I sat again, not too close, still a human shape in her peripheral vision, but not an immediate threat. "You're safe here," I said. She gave a sound that was almost a laugh, except there was no humor in it. "Safe? You don't believe that," I said. Her gaze flicked to the medical light. "You're kind, you hunt. We used to," I admitted. "We still do sometimes, depending on what you call hunting." Her shoulders tensed. "So do your kind," I added. "Your coalition eats protein." Her eyes narrowed slightly. We don't eat meat," I finished gently. "No, but you consume living matter, your algae cultures, your fungal vats. Life eats life. That's not the part that makes us dangerous." She stared at me like I'd said a forbidden truth out loud. "The part that makes us dangerous," I continued, "is that we're stubborn and we pack bond with anything we decide is ours." She blinked. "Pack bond," she repeated, translator twisting the concept around like a puzzle piece. "It means we attach," I said. "We decide something matters, and then we act like losing it would be worse than dying." Her chest rose and fell, slower now, still tense but not fracturing. "You decide I matter?" She asked, voice thin. I looked at her, really looked. Not at the fact that she was alien or diplomatic or rumored to be valuable, just at the creature in front of me, hurt, terrified, alive. "I decide you're a person," I said, "and people matter." Her eyes shone, bright as oil under light. "That's not what the reports say." "Reports aren't people," I said. For the first time, her gaze lifted to my eyes. It was like watching someone step out from behind a wall. Then she said in a voice that shook, "Why didn't you restrain me again? Why give me the chance to run?" Because the galaxy believed humans were simplest at their core. Strength equals control. Threat equals violence. Fear equals domination. But we were not that simple. "Because," I said, "if I keep you here by force, you'll be a prisoner. And if I keep you here by choice, you'll be a guest." She stared at me as if the words were heavier than the ship. "I don't understand you," she whispered. "That's okay," I said. "I don't understand a lot of the galaxy either." Her breathing steadied enough that the medic light returned to green and stayed there. For the next hour, I didn't ask her for codes, for diplomatic clearance, for information about the ambush, none of the things my captain would have liked. Instead, I did something the galaxy rarely saw humans do with an enemy. I made tea. Not because tea was some magic earth ritual that made people trust you. Not because it was diplomatic genius, because tea was something you made when you had time, and time was the one thing terror stole first. I brought her a warm cup, set it down, stepped back. She stared at the steam rising, her eyes softened almost despite herself. "What is it?" she asked. "Leaf water," I said, and she made a small, confused sound. You drink leaves. We drink the essence of leaves, I corrected. Sometimes flowers, sometimes bark. Humans are weird. A tiny, reluctant twitch touched the edge of her mouth. Not a smile, but the ghost of one. She lifted the cup, sniffed, then took a cautious sip. Her ears, thin membranes along her skull, flicked once, startled by the warmth. It's bitter, she said. Add honey, I suggested, then realized the dispenser didn't stock honey. I shrugged. Or don't. It's not about taste. It's about the fact that you're choosing. She looked down at the cup, then back at me. Choosing. Yes, I said, choosing. When the medbay doors hissed open, I felt the shift in air pressure before I saw the figures. 2 Marines stepped in, armor scuffed, rifles slung across their backs. Behind them came Captain Sato, sharp-eyed and exhausted, with the kind of posture you got when you'd spent too long pretending you weren't tired. Her gaze landed on Xiren, then on the cut cords, then on the tea. You unbound her, the captain said. I did, I answered. The captain didn't shout. She didn't even sound angry. She sounded like someone doing math with lives. She's a high-value diplomatic asset, Captain Sato said. If she runs and gets hurt, she won't run, Xiren said suddenly. Every head turned toward her. Her voice was still thin, but it carried something new, intention. Captain Sato's eyebrows lifted. You're speaking. Xiren's fingers tightened around the cup. I am trying. The captain's gaze moved to me. Explain. I spoke carefully. She was terrified. Keeping her bound would have confirmed every fear she has about us. That's not your call, Sato said. Xiren flinched at the sharpness, then forced herself to keep her eyes open. I felt something in my chest tighten, an old, instinctive human reflex. Pack bond. Without thinking, I angled my body slightly between Xiren and the captain, not blocking, not challenging, just present. A silent statement. This one is under my care. Captain Sato noticed. Her eyes narrowed a fraction. Engineer, she said quietly, are you standing between me and an alien courier? I didn't flinch. I'm standing near a frightened person. A long pause, then Captain Sato exhaled. She looked older in that moment, the weight of command pulling at her face. Fine, she said, but she remains under observation. Xiren's eyes darted to me, panic flashing again. I kept my voice calm. Observation isn't captivity, I said to her. It just means people are nervous. Xiren swallowed. Are humans. Always this calm before killing. One of the Marines snorted. The other coughed, trying to hide a laugh. Captain Sato's expression didn't change, but her eyes softened slightly. We don't kill guests, she said, and her tone made it sound like a law older than treaties. Xiren's gaze flicked to the Marines' rifles. Captain Sato followed her eyes. Those are for the ones who shot down your courier ship, she said. Not for you. Xiren blinked, confused. You will fight them. They attacked near our lanes, the captain said. They endangered my crew, and they left you drifting. Xiren's throat worked. Why does that matter to you? Captain Sato looked at me, then back at Xiren. It matters, she said, because someone left you to die, and humans have a problem with that. The galaxy thought human morality was a mask we wore when it was convenient. They were wrong. Human morality was often inconvenient. It was heavy. It got us hurt, and we carried it anyway. Over the next 2 days, Xiren stayed in medbay, but she wasn't restrained. She didn't try to run. Instead, she watched. She watched how our med techs spoke to each other, not with hierarchy, but with frantic teamwork. She watched how Marines softened their voices when they passed her bed, as if volume itself might be a weapon. She watched how Captain Sato visited twice a day, not to interrogate, but to update her. Course corrections, rescue beacons, status reports. And she watched me. I fixed a broken panel in the medbay wall. I calibrated the temperature controls. I patched the comm unit that might be the only line connecting her to her people. When I worked, I hummed quietly, a habit I didn't notice until Zyron asked. "What is that sound?" she said. "Humming," I answered. "Why?" I shrugged. "It helps me focus." She hesitated. "It sounds like comfort." It was. On the third day, she asked to walk. The med tech gave her a mobility brace. Zyron stood unsteadily, then took a step, then another. Her eyes were wide, scanning the corridor, tracking every hatch and shadow. I walked beside her, hands visible. "You don't have to escort me," she said. "Maybe," I said, "but I want to." Her ears flicked. "Want?" "Yes," I said. "Want." We passed a viewport. Beyond it, the stars were a scattered frost across black velvet. Zyron stopped and pressed her palm to the glass. "My ship," she whispered. "My crew." Her voice cracked. I didn't touch her. I didn't give the false comfort of saying they might still be alive if all evidence suggested otherwise. Instead, I did something humans did when there was nothing to fix. I stood with her. After a long time, she spoke, words slow. "My people believe humans are empty behind the eyes, that you can kill without feeling." I stared out at the stars. "Some humans can," I admitted. "Just like some of any species can. We're not special in that way." Zyron's fingers curled against the glass. "Then why do they fear you more?" "Because the galaxy's fear wasn't about what we felt. It was about what we did when we felt it." "Because," I said quietly, "when we care, we don't always know how to stop." She turned her head slightly. "That's worse." "It can be," I agreed. "It can also be the reason you're alive." She stared at me for a long moment, then softly, "I closed my eyes because I thought you would kill me, but you gave me water. You made Leaf water. You stood between me and your captain." I didn't deny it. Zyron's voice wavered. "Why?" I thought of the stories I'd grown up with, of strangers pulling children from wreckage, of neighbors rebuilding homes after storms, of people risking everything for someone they'd never met. I thought of the ugly parts too, the violence, the history. Humans were not saints, but we were, at our best, stubbornly protective. "Because," I said, "the first thing the galaxy does to someone it fears is remove their choices." Zyron's eyes tightened, like she felt the truth under her skin. "I didn't want to be part of that," I finished. "Not today." Her posture sagged, the tension draining in small increments. She whispered something in her own language, a phrase the translator struggled with. I caught the nearest meaning, unbroken. When we reached the station, a neutral orbital hub with coalition flags and human insignia sharing space reluctantly, everything became official. There were scanners, escorts, diplomatic representatives with practiced expressions. Zyron stood at the threshold of the docking tube, mobility brace replaced with a firm, steady stance. She wore a simple wrap the med tech had provided, human fabric, coalition colors, a quiet symbol of in-between. A coalition liaison approached, antennae stiff. Two guards flanked him, eyes sharp. "Courier Zyron," the liaison said in her tongue, relief flooding his scent glands. "We feared the worst." Zyron looked at them, then she looked back at me. Her eyes held something that hadn't been there 3 days ago, not just gratitude, judgment. The liaison followed her gaze and noticed me, human, unarmed, standing slightly back as if refusing to claim credit. His face tightened. "Did they harm you?" Zyron's mouth pressed into a line. The guards shifted, hands hovering near their weapons. The liaison's gaze hardened. "If there is any," Zyron lifted her hand, stopping him. "No," she said, and her voice was steady enough to cut through fear. "They did not harm me." The liaison blinked. "They restrained you." Zyron glanced down at her wrists, now unmarked. "They freed me." A ripple of confusion moved through the coalition group. Zyron took a breath, then she did something I didn't expect. She stepped toward the liaison and spoke louder, addressing not just him but the guards, the observers, the recording drones. "I was taught," she said, that humans kill when given the chance, that they cannot control their violence. That mercy is a performance. Her ears flicked once, a signal of emphasis. I closed my eyes, she continued, because I believed I was already dead. The guard's eyes narrowed, ready for confirmation of horror. Zyron's gaze sharpened instead. But the human did not kill me, she said. He did not even keep me. He gave me a chance to leave. He gave me water. He gave me warmth. He gave me choice. She paused, and I could see her fighting something inside herself, the old fear, the old narrative. Then she finished, voice clear, and that is what shocked me most, not their strength, their restraint. The liaison stared, uncertain. The guards shifted again, weapons suddenly awkward. Zyron turned to me. Her eyes held mine, and for a moment the galaxy felt smaller. In my report, she said quietly, just for me, I will write the truth. What truth? I asked. She lifted her chin. That humans are terrifying, she said, because they can destroy. I didn't argue. And humans are terrifying, she added, because they can choose not to. Then she did something no coalition courier was supposed to do with a species their training labeled unpredictable. She placed her hand over her chest, a veiled gesture of acknowledgement, a promise carried in muscle and bone. Elias Mar, she said, careful with my name. You did not take my life. Her eyes glistened. You returned it. Before I could find words worthy of that, she turned and walked into the station, toward her people, toward safety, toward bureaucracy and debriefings, and the careful reshaping of a narrative that had been built on fear. The docking tube doors slid shut between us. Captain Sato appeared beside me, hands clasped behind her back. You made an impression, she said. I didn't mean to, I replied. The captain's gaze stayed on the sealed doors. Sometimes, she said, meaning to isn't the point. She was quiet for a beat. Engineer, she added, do you know what happens when a frightened diplomat tells her entire coalition that humans can choose restraint? I swallowed. They'll reconsider us. Captain Sato's mouth twitched, almost a smile. They'll fear us differently, she said, which in politics is a kind of miracle. I looked at the sealed doors and imagined Zyron standing in front of her superiors, repeating the truth while they tried to sand it down into something safe. Humans were still dangerous, but maybe, just maybe, the galaxy would learn the most dangerous thing about us wasn't our teeth. It was our hands, open and empty, offering a cup of water to someone who expected a knife. And somewhere beyond the station's walls, across cold lanes of starlight, a story would spread. A veiled courier closed her eyes, certain a human would kill her. And what the human did instead shocked the galaxy.